Hello, everyone. Welcome back to OTD Military History. Today's live stream is very impromptu. I finally got a chance to cover a topic I've been asked about in the past, very briefly in AMAs and things like that. I just didn't really answer them because I hadn't really given them much thought or taken any research in the direction or wasn't really happy with the depth of my experience with the topic. I just hadn't done enough. So I think at this point, again, I'm not an expert in this topic. I wrote that down in my notes. Today we're talking about artificial intelligence and its applications in history and how it affects how history is presented. So those are two different topics, but things I've been thinking about for quite a while and all of that. And by the thumbnail and title, you can tell I'm not a fan. I think it's bad at the moment, and I want to press it. Have that said now. I don't know where it's going. It could change. As it's going as of now, it's not a good thing. It's causing problems, all kinds of ways, and I'll talk about some of those. So I guess I'll talk about the impetus of why I'm doing this, because I can see some people in the sidebar. So again, thanks for coming live and hanging out. Is for all of you, I'm sure you're all aware, who are here live and maybe not so afterwards if you're watching later, is Paul Wittich of World War II TV. His channel, he's been put on a temporary ban for, as of the time of this recording, for a week. I'm not going to get into the specifics because Woody didn't want to discuss them himself in a public forum, so I can just talk about the things I've seen having to do with a short he made and the algorithm, basically, because he started making shorts. For those of you who don't watch them, they're the short little clips, usually meant to be watched on mobile and are done in portrait style. He started making those. One got him into some trouble with the algorithm, which is part of artificial intelligence. He tried to appeal the ban and just got dumped into another AI hole. So it got me thinking about things I've been thinking about already. This has happened to me, not as severe. I got a warning for it. I got a warning based on a short I made, basically telling Nazis that they suck. I think it just keyed on the pictures, and that's all it was pictures of well-known Nazi leaders, and didn't take anything into context, which is something I want to talk about. So I've been, quote unquote, victim of this myself. It's the system that did it. It doesn't seem to be that he was mass reported. That's not the sense. It had to do with a video and a fact that was made, and then how it was presented and something else after that. Put it into context, but the AI can't do that. That's one of the biggest things I wanted to talk about. I guess this goes for both of those buckets, right? Of how history is done and then how it's presented, particularly in today's digital world. I work in digital history. It's what I do. I haven't, I haven't done print work, and I don't know. Everything's digital. All the stuff I do for organizations is through developed apps or web pages or social media or YouTube. I don't do the traditional print book thing. I have never done that. My dissertation isn't even in a printed format anywhere other than my notes. So, you know what I mean? Like, this is what I do. So I see how algorithms affect things. I can see how AI goes places. It has its uses. I'm not going to deny that. I use AI myself. I'm using it right now. It's kind of freaking me out a little bit. It's very not even noticeable. It's noticeable to me because I see myself all the time. But in the software I use, there was a way to clean up your appearance, and I turned it on. I think it makes a difference. That makes my skin look a little different. So I still use it. I use it for YouTube. I use it for things like titles and tags and keywords and something like that. Things like that. And I use it, and it's good for those to some degree. I mean, one of the things about how AI works is it's able to take information that is vast amounts of it, right? Like, I've linked an article down below. You can check that out after. They're talking about things like observations, I think it was ancient Greece, I can't remember, of astronomical information, and how researchers wanted all that, so they digitized it all, and it's a lot of stuff. So they are able to get AI to train to go through all that, recognize patterns and things of that nature. So it's good for those kinds of things. I guess I've never done it in that sense. I've never done the high data computational style of history. It's not what I do. I've never done that type of history. I don't sit there with, all this vast amounts of data that takes forever to parcel through. I've never done that type of history, and I don't think I ever will. Not in economics or history of science or anything like that. I mean, obviously that can be applied to some areas of military history, but it's just not what I do. As a lot of you probably already know, I like to come from the human side and the human stories and the human connection. And that has its own faults and its own problems. But for AI, it doesn't really come up. It can help with things like for YouTube, writing scripts, getting quick answers that are very broad. I mean, I was literally just playing around with Chat GPT earlier, just before starting. It's not great. It's Wikipedia. it's some of the same stuff as Wikipedia. So it didn't give anything new. A lot of the information is just incorrect. So that's an issue. So again, I was doing the reading through that. So it's doing AI is doing computational data, things like that. Again, I'm not doing that. So it is for other stuff. But again, I'm just going to keep saying this probably over and over again because I haven't collected my thoughts, as you guys I know I do. I just kind of runs a list and kind of go with it. So I'm not a fan, right? The delivery stuff. I mean, again, talking about Woody and what happened. It's happened to me. It's happened to other people. The algorithms runs everything. It'll determine who does and doesn't see this, right? You guys have been following my channel for a while, so you're going to see this. Other people may not ever see this, right? There's still a human element of getting people to click on the video, but the algorithm plays a huge on that, right? So, and what's popular, what's not, and what the system computes to be popular and what people watch and for longer. So that obviously has an impact on what history is viewed and by who. So that to me is a major issue. I mean, you can search for whatever you want. YouTube's one of its better things is the search function. And it's pretty good, unless you're looking for something like tiny niche. It's an issue. So it's better for that though. So it's something I do appreciate about the system is the search function. It's interesting, but again, that algorithmic thing that drives the system is not good. Yeah, so what I kind of want to talk about now is how history kind of operates in terms of what I do and where I think AI doesn't fit in here, right? And as I already talked about in the sidebar, and I briefly alluded to it though, is context, right? Context is everything in history, right? Without context, it's just some words on a page that don't mean anything, right? I've been doing, as you know, a lot of you know, I'm working on Normandy, and I've been going through the POW murders lately. I mean, you can say whatever you want. Sorry, I've just seen a comment here. I'll come back to that in a second. I'm not sure what you guys are talking about. A new platform. So there's some people upset with YouTube. If you guys could let me know what you're talking about, that would be great. Anyway, so context is everything. It's one of the things I was taught in my PhD, undergrad, and blah, blah, blah. It's everything. And from what I can see, maybe I misunderstand it. Again, I'm not an expert in this area. It can't do that. It can't do context properly or even at all. It can do things like Matt. Hey, Matt, for showing up and hanging out. I can do things like tagging stuff, going through vast collections, like photos. There's one that's looking at, I was reading an example. It's looking at just dumping digitized images and then it pulling out something from the image and then classifying it based on that. So like landscape or portrait or building or whatever. It can do that, but it can't do the context of what's important, what's not important, what does matter, what doesn't matter. So it's really good in that sense, and it's good in like things like tagging keywords and things like that, and doing real basic summaries. I mean, again, I was just playing with Chat GPT, and the basic summaries that were giving me were just incorrect. Wikipedia is more correct, and just says this information does not exist in a digitized format, which is also not true. So it's not there yet. Maybe the better paid systems are doing better than that, but as of now, what's available for free and open to the public which is all of us, it doesn't do you any good. So that I've seen, because I wanted to talk about that right now, and doing the history particularly is I've seen people online, as you know, I try to keep up with these things and just see patterns and what people do and what they talk about in comments and the like. It's some person, this was a long time ago, and thankfully I haven't really seen it since, is somebody used, I think it was ChatGPT, when it really first became public not too long ago, and it was really, really popular and people were playing around with it. Someone said it's automatically correct. No matter what it says, even though the system now says it might be wrong, it said it's right because it's on the internet. And I went, that is not how that works ever. Even if it's in a book, all the books behind me have incorrect information in them. Just because it's published somewhere online, print, what have you, doesn't make it correct. And there's no check on that. There's no system to check on that, right? It's kind of a lazy way forward. I haven't taught in the universities since it became a thing. There was talk of it, and I graduated before that happened. Where people are using ChatGPT and other systems and what have you to write assignments, and they're all getting caught because this stuff gets stored, and you can literally check it internally, saying like, "Was this talked about? Did you write this?" And it can tell you. And usually, you can just tell when something's off because it just doesn't feel human. But I want to talk about that more towards the end. So again, like I said, context is missing. It can't do context. It can do fact. It can do that, even though the facts sometimes are very wrong. And Matt's right. Like it's ChatGPT, and again, this is just one because it's available for free. Is quite dodgy. Yeah, 100% accurate. I use another one. I don't want to really call them out because they help in so many other ways. But one I do pay for, and it helps with YouTube stuff. Their AI is, I think it's new. It's not great. It's terrible, actually. I use it as a way to, how do I say this? Basically write the outline for me, and then I usually just rip it all apart anyway. Like I don't use the facts. If it's like, this stuff happened here, like I don't want to write that out 1,000 times. But just the information it was giving was just all incorrect. And for the Civil War video I did a while back, everything was wrong. Like I said, talking about Canadian Medal of Honor winners in the American Civil War. None of the names it brought up, were Canadian, even remotely at all, and barely touched on what they did. So it's not going to be replacing people anytime soon for writing this stuff. I mean, people can use it, but it's not going to replace anybody anytime soon, nor do I think it should ever replace anything. Yeah, and this is my point, Armored Phalanx here. Phalanx, sorry. It's again, and that was one of the things I was going to touch on here. About what it even is, right? I'm not a computer scientist. I'm not into the ethics of this. I mean, this can be touched on by all kinds of areas, particularly in science, and that's something I'll get to in a minute about history and where that all fits in. But even what it is, right? It's not necessarily artificial intelligence. There's no real intelligence behind it. There's no understanding of what the data actually means. They can present the data, but that's it. Again, you hit a nail on the head there. There's no context. And history is all context. Like I said, I'll probably say that repeatedly. Maybe that's the theme we take away from this, if it's not even the AI stuff. That's not even true. I wish it was, but that's not true. I tried it because I tried it. I tried using a minor figure from the Hong Kong stuff into ChatGPT that I know there's like a Wikipedia page for, Encyclopedia Britannica, and it said there are no digital information available about this person. So it's just not even good for that sense yet. Maybe it will, but right now it's still terrible. It's just so bad. Yeah. So again, again, it's a bit of a misnomer. I called it AI because again, it gets people's attention. It's what most people know it as. But again, we're not entirely sure what it is. And again, doing some quick reading, people who are making this stuff aren't entirely sure how it's working sometimes. I mean, I could be wrong. That's just what I was reading. And one of the articles I was reading talks about that and how it's so complicated and trying to, basically recreate the human brain, because they literally use the same terminology with neural networks and things like that. It's literally trying to recreate that, and it just can't do that. So it's dangerous in that way. I mean, Matt's talking about this here. There's ones I haven't looked at, but Bard, Copilot, haven't used them. at all. I've heard not good things about some of them, but haven't used them. Yeah. So, and again, it's only what's put in. So, again, one thing I could be wrong in, but how I was getting this, and I see this in other areas that aren't even AI, is about science. Right? What is the science? And history is a science. History is not a science. It's not even a social science. Some universities, again, coming from an academic background, apparently. Some people on YouTube don't like when I talk about my academic background. I bring it up at any opportunity I can, blah, blah, blah. It's some universities classify it as a social science. I even disagree with that because it's not. That implies that there is, again, I could be, how do I say this? Of a set of rules, that doesn't even feel like the right phrase. A set of, I put predetermined rules, machine logic. You have to give it a parameter, and history doesn't apply to said parameters, right? You can't test hypotheses in history the same that you can in other departments. Sorry, I just want to check something here real quick. Okay, good. Just a dog update. Dog is not in the house today. Yeah, so you can't do it in the same way. So a lot of the people who are working on this are coming from those backgrounds, and they are trying to apply that with history elements. And it works in some cases, in some cases it does not, which is problematic. However, I've seen, again, there's some projects out there, and I want to get to that now, is what it can and cannot do, right? One of the things it was talking about here, hold on, I just want to find it. Oh, there it is. So one of the things that one of the projects that was being looked at is restoring, I think it was old Athenian texts, it was a long time ago, that have fallen apart. The scrolls pieces are missing. So they've used AI and taking aggregate data from, I guess, the rest of the scrolls. I don't know. It didn't say. And that's one of the big points I want to talk about is sources. We'll get to that in a minute. But one of the issues that I have with this AI is a lot of it is assumption. There is a ton of assumption going on here based on aggregate data or what have you. That is not how history works, right? This is not how you do it. You don't test a hypothesis and just keep trying to replicate it. That's not what's going on here, right? It's not how it works. There's no set of rules, right? And even if someone tries to come up with a set of rules or explain it in a certain way, there's 1,000 examples proving them wrong. And I'm not going to get into the whole areas of historiography where certain people only apply a certain way of looking at things, and you can blow those out of the water with one example easily found. It doesn't really work that way. You can't apply that sort of thinking to the historical discipline. And again, that thing with the texts, restoring them, quote unquote, digitally, that's an assumption, right? Is it a good assumption based on data? Yeah, but it still could be wrong. I mean, they were talking about some of the accurate percentages of how these things are going, and some are better. One, they're bragging about it being 60%, right, being right 60% of the time. And I'm like, this is like batting averages in baseball here, guys. It's good numbers for the thing, but it's still terrible. 400 batting average is fantastic, but in numbers, it's terrible. So you know what I mean? If that makes any sense. So, you know what I mean? There's still a lot of incorrect, especially when you're going through all this data, right? And again, I don't have a solution. I just have a worry is, there's assumptions being made on this mass amount of data. And what if it's wrong, right? What if it's making us, coming together and it's just misinterpreting it, particularly older stuff. I mean, it's just, to me, it's a concern that it could be wrong. And another thing is sources, which I mentioned. ChatGPT doesn't give you sources. Same with that other AI I used for some of the scripts. There's no sources, and that is history, right? AI is messing with sources, some would say, quote unquote. I know some people who don't even like historical footage to be like cropped, which is the bread and butter of YouTube, right? They're saying that is affecting the source. So making an assumption about words written in the 5th century BC, to me, that sounds worse than clipping a thing of footage, but that's neither here nor there. But, it's, and lots of good points are being in the sidebar about being what's put in comes out. And that's my major concern. um, is of what it can't tell. It doesn't make assumptions on what's important and what's not. There was another example of the university, I think it was in Venice, talking about, using civic, documents to tell where people lived and where, and recognizing the same names. But it can't give you a context of what's going on. It can just say, oh, well, this number matches this name over and over and over again, or doesn't. And that's great. It doesn't do us much good in terms of trying to understand what's actually going on, right? We can't do that without sources. And it's one of the biggest issues with history, right? Is so many stories are gone and we have no sources, but we can't assume. And it seems like, again, this is just an inference for me working as someone who does this stuff. And I understand it, the appeal to want to make an assumption. Historians do it all the time. You're supposed to not. But historians do it all the time. Tons of them behind me here have done it, about motivates leaders or why certain decision was made on a battlefield. They, again, it did, they make assumptions of why these things happen. And we do that, and sometimes it's fun to do online and blah, blah, blah. But you can't do that and it'd be 100% correct, right? We don't have those letters. We don't have those recollections. We don't have even photos of the vast majority of, or anything of the vast majority of humans who've ever lived. We just don't have that. And I don't see AI as helping with that. It's not going to all of a sudden give us these stories. It can give us some information related to them in some sort of capacity if it was written down and digitized. And digitization is its own huge problem. You have to first digitize it. You have to give the system something to work off of. And if it's got nothing to work off of, it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Even in Canada alone, we have millions and millions and millions of pieces of paper in archives that are not digitized. It doesn't do anybody any good in that sense for AI. It's not going to solve any of those problems. It's not going to give us that information. It's still got to be looked at. So I don't see it being good in history right now. For the completion of history, I just want to make sure it's covered everything here. It's troublesome based on a historical field perspective and how history's been carried out and all of that. It's problematic in that sense. It's not going to replace how it gets done, right? Some of the most interesting stories we like to hear is things that are connected that you never would have seen a connection. Is the system going to AI or whatever, machine learning, whatever you want to call it, is that going to do that? I don't know. We're not there. I mean, the technology is not there yet. Tons of money is being dumped into this. And again, being the history nerd that I am, I read some articles about how this has actually already gone in waves, where there was tons of funding and then it dried up. A lot of people don't think that's going to happen again, but who knows, right? We'll see. But already this has happened, right? Where there's promises made, not fulfilled, and moving on. So yeah, so I think this is a tool, and that's one of the things I want to talk about. So it's a tool, but it's an incomplete tool. It can't replace human historians. And obviously I'm biased. I think I said it off the top. Obviously I'm a biased historian who does this stuff. Yes, of course it's going to affect me if it takes my jobs and takes everything away from me. Of course, that's a bias of mine. As of now, though, it can't. I tried to get it to do it for me real quick, and it did. It's not really working. And there's all of other things that I didn't get into, like ethics and morals. That's a whole other thing. And how decisions are made. I mean, there's lots of that going on, talking about current military operations connected to military history. Predicting singularity or parity with humans by 2029. I don't know if I believe that. I don't know. Yeah, so there's lots there. If you guys have any questions, please fire away. But as of now, I'm just going to talk about some things I do, right? Like there's lots of stuff that it can do to help, right? It can clean stuff up. I still find a lot of it's really not that good. Because again, not a lot of money's been put into it. Everyone's trying to develop their own and do stuff. And it's just, I don't think it's there. It's not there. It's not going to get the context. And to me, that's the most important thing. I wrote that down multiple times in my notes. Is it can't do the context. How it's going to do morality, I don't know. I mean, operations room talking about reasoning and law and punishment and things like self-driving cars, right? Who, if there's a bunch of people. Oh yeah, sorry, Susan, I forgot to turn that off. I turned on ads. I should have turned them off, turned them back on for after. I apologize. Yeah, so I mean, and then there's the deeper issues that I have no idea about, like self-driving cars and who do you run over? You know, if the road's full of people, who do you run over, or do you stop, or what if you can't stop? You know, the occupant is in more danger. How does that decide, right? You know, who knows? And I'm not going to get into that, but for history, it doesn't look like it's there. I mean, can they get there? Maybe. Again, I don't know. It is accelerating. Oh, sorry, that's not the one. Yeah, so it's accelerating, and it is. The things I've been reading about and hearing about, and how we're getting there. Yeah, I mean, that's what I've been kind of talking about with the car thing, right? Is it's context. It's no different. Morality is context. Yeah, I mean, things like translations are really good. I've done that myself. It still takes, sometimes it takes a lot of work. You know, it's sorry, I'm just thinking about different stuff. Yeah, it's good for translations. I've had some good success with that myself. But again, if it's digitized. If it's not, it doesn't do any good. Right? Or you use your phone to do it. I mean, it's hard to do that. Especially some archives literally won't let you use a phone unless it has a strap attached to it, because you might drop it on the document and damage the document. So that's kind of annoying, but something that can be worked on. Anyway, I'm not a fan, is basically what I'm trying to say here. It's a tool, again, but an incomplete tool. There's some talk in the sidebar about what's happening. I'd be glad to hear from people who work in this field or are tangentially connected to it or know more than I do. I mean, just from what I do in a given day, right, from working on things like social media, trying to present history, you know, using primary sources and how I was trained in academics to bring to a general audience, it's not there. Could it be there soon? Maybe. I don't know. I don't think so. And again, this happens with historians, right? We get kind of stuck in what we're working on currently, right? And I've been doing lots of reading and researching currently on, again, let's start off the top with the POWs, Canadian POWs who are murdered in Normandy. Can AI, whatever, machine learning, trying to get that, you know, to go and write that story correctly? Is it going to go about what sources is it going to use to tell the story? How is it going to tell the story, right? Is it going to, you know, is it going to use Kurt Meyer's book only, right? Is it going to use Hubert Meyer's 12th SS history and ignore the Canadian sources? I don't know. I don't know how it works on the back end. And that's another issue I have, but that just goes back to sources. How does that work? I get it. You can program it to use available sources, but we don't see how it's arriving to its conclusions, right? That's an issue for me. The same issue is when people get upset when a history book doesn't have a list of cited sources, right? What's the difference, right? I don't know. I'm not a fan. To me, it doesn't really help me much in terms of making good history. I think it makes quite poor history. And again, it can't do context. But yeah, things like, sorry, I just want to read some stuff out here. Yes, they are, Susan. That's definitely in that category. One of the reasons I left Twitter, aside from the whole, you know, anti-Semitic owner of the company and the awfulness, is the bots. The bots were just overwhelming and annoying, and I just gave up. Sorry, I just want to get some of these comments here. Yeah, I mean, that's a good point too. Is the Turing test, right? The Imitation Game, blah, blah, blah. Not the best movie historically. I don't even know if it explained the tech very well. For my sense of reading, it didn't. That's a rabbit hole. Yeah, I mean, I don't think they're anywhere there yet. I mean, talking the sidebar again of companies talking about we're going to get there soon. It's it's kind of frustrating in that sense. And again, maybe this is just a pure personal opinion here and pure bias to hear that it's going to replace people. And maybe this is kind of what I can end with here. And then if you guys have questions for me, you can fire away. Yeah, 2029, I guess we're all getting replaced. We've got some years, 6 years. Enjoy it while you can. Yeah, how do I say this? I'm not, and actually, this is a good point. Maybe I can frame that as a question. Or Robert, if you have a question, that'd be great about good. What is good? If you can frame it as a question, I can pull up on screen. That would be awesome. Anyway, I'm not a religious person. I don't necessarily believe all of that. But things like the word soul, I can't think of a better word. That innate humanness that goes into history, that will be removed. It won't have that unless, of course, they're working on soul programming. The best books, the best sources, the best impact, not maybe when I mean best, I mean impactful. The most impactful books, the most impactful sources have that human element to them. If you don't have that human element, what do you have? You have a Wikipedia article. That's maybe even worse than Wikipedia. At least Wikipedia is mostly written by people. And then they argue about it infinitum. But to me, that's just me. If you remove that, what's the point? It's the same debate. I think I've seen these debates that go, yeah, I was just making a joke, Matt. Sorry. I was just making a joke about us getting replaced. Yeah, sorry, just joke. I was just joking, everyone. To be clear. This is an art too. Art and music and poetry it doesn't have that same soul. If a robot's doing it, I know I'm not using the correct terminology. Does that robot have experiences as a human? No, despite what some television shows want you to believe. Or a movie called AI, which was just terrible. Not a fan of that movie. Awful story and so boring. It doesn't have that humanness, and I hope that's something we don't lose. I don't think that's going to happen in our lifetimes. Well, that's singularity, is it not? If I'm using that incorrectly, I apologize. Theorem, yeah, synthetically build a brain from scratch in a factory so accurately be transplanted to real humans. Is that AI? I don't know. Oh, geez, that'll hurt your brain. But again, yeah, I mean, I guess that's an appeal to emotion and things like that is where it's seen as a logical fallacy. But in terms of getting a sense of this stuff, and you're supposed to cut through that in history, which I don't actually fully believe in myself, that because history is not a science, as I talked about, so there's no rules there. It's no set of everything. I don't see it that way. So I think it's missing. Well, but what is IQ? How is IQ measured? I don't believe in IQ. I don't believe in that as a subjective test because it's not. It's been shown to not be subjective. And again, I talked about this in infinitum, and I probably never will stop. Objective versus subjective. That doesn't go anywhere. Bias is everywhere. We all have it. Even the robots that will be programmed will be biased based on how they're programmed. I don't know the mechanics, but it doesn't matter because that's how things work. Anyway, so I mean, it's just I'm worried about the human element and what we have. Is it just going to be regurgitating the same thing over and over again? I mean, there's been talk about, I think it was poems or songs being written by AI, and people can't tell the difference. Well, this is kind of what I've been alluding to. Actually, hold on. Well, this one's quick. Yeah, I'm not a philosopher, right? I'm not trained in any way, shape, or form. I took a philosophy class in first year university forever ago and know the basics. So I didn't want to come at it from that perspective because it's not my area. But it's a philosophy subject, and it forever will be, I do believe, and how it's used. And it's just it should be. This is people say it has no philosophy, has no real world application. Yeah, well, now it does. And this is a good way of putting it for Matt. So I really appreciate this. Is data, knowledge, and wisdom. AI is just data. How long will that last? I don't know. Will it get there? As I see it now, as the historian talking about this, rather impromptu, with the current technology, no, but I'm not saying that's not going to happen. You know, who could have foreseen some of the things we have today? 6 years. So in about 6 years, we're doomed. Again, making a joke. Yeah, I keep seeing Terminator 2. That keeps popping in my head. But yeah, it seems like it's being used as shortcuts. You know, shortcuts to save cash, go through massive amounts of data, and that's kind of connecting back to what inspired this chat and lots of the input, which is great. I'd love to see it. Is what happened again with World War II TV, which I know a lot of you guys already support and do through things like Patreon. That's a great way of helping Woody, and YouTube channel memberships, things like that. That's good to help, and then go back, watch old stuff for stuff you missed, or rewatch ones you really, really like. So it's what, you know, that big massing sort of data, and again, not blaming YouTube necessarily. I mean, I am, but I understand it. I guess that's the thing in history, right? I can blame somebody, but still understand the perspective. Is there's just so much, but there should be a check on this, right? I mean, it's a week-long ban. It's not a big deal in the grand scheme of things, but it sucks and it's not fair. Yeah. Okay. So what happened? Because this was on, I can talk about this from my experience being on YouTube myself, is the channel's fine. The channel's not going anywhere. He has they call it a strike. 3 strikes and you're gone. That's coming off. So it's not going to even be permanently on him. Like I have a warning that's still on me. I had to take some stupid training course that taught me nothing. The channel is still working, and he can start uploading and streaming again a week from the ban going into place. But he wasn't able to appeal to a human. And what he was talking about was a Holocaust subject. And that's another thing right here is something like that. How is AI going to handle that? I don't think it's going to do it. I don't see like the Armenian genocide. How's that going to get covered? Right. And Andreas brings up an excellent point. What's the check? There is no check, right? I use that example off the top about someone who said if it's online, it's right. Just because somebody buys a domain, rents a domain, whatever, makes it look good, plugs something into ChatGPT and throws it up there and gets lots of hits, doesn't mean it's right. Doesn't mean it's factually correct. This is a problem that we've been having for a long time anyway. I think James was talking about how this is not a new problem and not a new discussion, just social media brings it to the forefront. This is no different than history. This is the stuff I can definitely talk about, right? Is just because it's out there doesn't mean it's correct. Or if it was at the time correct, it's no longer correct, right? We have this new source that says that this is wrong, or a new interpretation that says, you know, oh, hold on. You know what? That's up to the individual, and AI can probably help with that in the future. But again, how it derives its information is a big mystery to me, which I guess is my own ignorance. But hopefully, you know, that doesn't happen. Sorry, I'm just reading. Is there a fair alternative to YouTube? I understand what you're saying, Andreas, but I don't know what fair means. Again, I'm not, you know, like, tell me what you made. How dare you use that word? You know what I mean? What is fair? Fair to the creator, fair to the viewer. Who makes the most money, right? Is that fair? There's one that I'm not a fan of. It's not even an attraction issue. It's the company itself. One of the reasons like I didn't like Twitter anymore is a lot of the same thinking that goes into this alternative that I'm not going to mention and will not be using because it's not good. It propagates the ideas I'm trying to fight, particularly those known as neo-Nazis. They run rampant over there, and I'm not going there. And Musk is not going to buy YouTube. I get what you're saying, Susan. I've seen people actually wanting this on the other site, as it's called on Blue Sky now, the other place, wanting this to happen. And I'm going, A, he can't do it. He doesn't have any cash. How's he going to buy it? He can't. He's going to get more financing from the Saudis. I mean, they might give it to him, but he couldn't. Google is far bigger than him, and why would they sell to him? I don't see that happening. I mean, YouTube is imperfect. Everything is, but I mean, it's the reliance on these algorithms. Yeah, I mean, I agree, right? I didn't want to say this outright. I was hoping somebody else would say this. As moving forward, I don't have an issue with it. I guess I should have ended with that as well, but I don't have an issue with it. If it can be done well and we can understand it and what goes into it and how things are put into it, right? Where is this information coming from? Is it coming from, the Auschwitz Museum, or is it coming from Stormfront? I want to know, right? And I can't see that. I mean, maybe there is a way to see that now, and I'm just not technically literate enough to do that. But I want that, and I don't have that. So historians have an important role to play here. I agree in making sure this is done correctly. This cannot be done on its own. AI can't do this by itself. As I currently understand the technology and what's being explained to me even now, I don't see it. So yeah, so I'm just going to go through some of the stuff here, and that's the one I'm not going there. Yeah, not happening. Oh, thanks for popping in, Pat. I appreciate it. Yeah, Google is not gonna sell. That's not gonna happen. Yeah. Oh, sorry, I hit the wrong one. You guys are flying here. Yeah, it's too big. That is the exact issue. I think that explains the issue with Woody 100% accurately. Some of the things I've had in the past were things I've had some issue in the back end or videos that never came out for all kinds of reasons. It's all automation, all of it. Like they even have scheduled, they program now their Twitter, because I put this on Twitter a while back now about having an issue I was having, and the bot that runs it was talking to me, literally taking phrases from the Q&A page. You know what I mean? It's just not helpful. I was like, that doesn't do me any good. That doesn't explain it. Yeah. Sorry, I'm just reading through these real quick. Yeah, Elon's not born in the U.S. Well, that's one thing. Yeah, exactly. This is nothing new. But this is a new avenue, new way of delivering it. So maybe we can get on the ground floor. Maybe things will be different this time. Yeah, that sounds real optimistic. Never happened in the past. Yeah, and I understand that, Chris. That's what I mean. I get that. I completely, fully understand that, because there's so much. And it's grabbing it on its own, and it's not telling us. I don't know. You know what I mean? Is there a way of doing that moving forward? Maybe we can use AI to make that easier for us. I don't know. I honestly don't know. But it makes me uncomfortable as a historian if I can't see the progression. You know what I mean? Sometimes this makes sense to some people, but in archives, you can see, like, if you're looking at a photo, it'll say, photo, XYZ. And you can see, oh, it came from this folder. Okay, where's that folder come from? Oh, it comes from this collection. Okay, or this series of folders. What is that series of folders? Who brought that in? You can see that. Like, you can progress your way back to where this all comes through and how it's all categorized. If AI can do that, I would be more comfortable with it and think it would be better for us in this regard in the history field. But as of now, I don't see that happening. Yeah, I mean, this is a big deal. The deep fakes are really, really bad, and people are doing them to try and change things. Sorry, have an impact now, how to, misinformation with events in the past, and using these deep fakes like speeches and, supposed historical information or footage and documents. And it's wild. And we need to be aware of that. And that, Susan, is probably, without meaning it, one of the most controversial things you've ever said. Because that's such a dividing thing in the field. Historians aren't supposed to be activists. You're not supposed to input your personal. You're not supposed to blah blah blah. As a lot of you know, I don't care. I'm not an academic. I don't work in a university. That said, if you could become a patron of OTD, that would be very much appreciated, because I need some help in that front to continue with the Normandy project as best as possible. So if you could, links below. Thank you. But yeah, that said, it's one of the most controversial questions of the field, is what historians are supposed to be. what historians think historians are supposed to be, what the general public thinks historians are supposed to be. People think historians don't put personal input on stuff, and that's just bonkers. Where do they think this stuff comes from? Like, that's just wild that people think that. And I've talked about this before, did a whole video on bias. It's just, that's wild to me. And that some historians still think this. It's wild. I mean, we have to give our knowledge. Otherwise, what is the point of all of this? My gut right now says to this question, no, unfortunately. They do. They do, in a way, sometimes. Usually pretty small things, but yeah. Well, that's good. I mean, that's a safeguard built into it, but is everyone going to do that? I doubt it. I've heard, well, what's the one on Twitter was not doing it either. I know Chat GPT will refuse to answer certain questions in the leading way that their people write them. So that is good. Is that going to continue? Using history, if you look at the unbridled capitalism of the late 19th century, those who are not forced to do so won't. Until they're forced to do so. So is that for the government to do? Is that for the public to vote with their wallets? I don't know. That's an interesting point, Matt. What do you mean? If you could expand on that real quick. We can't afford. Oh, not to be. Sorry, I misread that. Yeah, I completely agree. Sorry, I misread it. I didn't see the not. Yeah, we have to be. We have to keep going. So yeah. So thanks. Oh, thanks for stopping by. Yeah, I mean, some of them are really, really bad, and not that they're good. You know what I mean? It's really, really weird. I mean, like, they're making songs of artists, and people think they're real. Yeah, well, that's a major issue, right? People just don't know the history. And what I'm worried about, I guess this is just coming to me now, it's not something new for me, though, is AI is going to, whoever makes the AI is going to be pushing a certain way, shape, or form, and that's going to color it. But that's always been the case, right? But if AI is the new thing, right, that's problematic. Right? It's just the new format of delivering this information. So like Matt said, we have to be activists. Hey, Pete, thanks for coming, hanging out. Oh, thanks, Phil. Yeah, I wish, again, how do I say this without sounding greedy? I just wish it was more viewed. It's not viewed very much. Not many people have looked at it because I think it's an important topic that doesn't even get discussed in history a lot. Offhandedly, yes, social media posts, and then it's not talked about, but I just wish it was, more watched so that debate would be more done. I don't like where that debate is currently in terms of bias, because like we've been talking about here over the last little bit, it's connected. So it's not a new topic. It's not going anywhere either. So it's not like AI is going to cut through this, because it won't. It can't. It's not possible. Oh, thank you for the super chat. Very much appreciated. Thank you. I'm not necessarily. Oh yes, Gronk. Yeah, I was thinking of. Yeah, that one's a whole other stupid thing. Anyway, yeah. I mean, I'm not necessarily scared necessarily. I mean, I don't know if scared is the right word, but cautious. I'm not optimistic. That's for sure. Just the way that things are missed. Definitely not optimistic about it at this current time. But we'll see. And again, this is not my area of expertise in the slightest. So yeah. Yeah, there's yeah, you might need a parachute there, Pete. Then the ladder's going to be way too slow. It's not like I'm doing anything crazy. So, I'm not my expertise. It's just we're at the discussion point here of just talking about this now. I might edit this video down later so it has more organization to it. But as of now, we're just kind of chatting. Oh, thank you for the Christmas presents. Much appreciated. Yeah, I mean, yeah, they're bad. They're really, really bad. Well, thanks for coming out, Susan. Yeah, the same with me. I've never liked them. Like people use them on YouTube a lot for the narration because a lot of people don't like their own voices, which is something that I think is. I know it's silly. I used to think the same, but now it's has an authenticity that we're going to be missing with AI also as well. But that's going back to the human element. But yeah, they're so bad, a lot of them, and it's not good. Yeah. I think it was roughly a month ago. I'm not sure. This last little bit has been kind of a blur for me. We had a death in the family not too long ago. So the last little bit's been kind of tough for me and my wife. This is just complete sidetrack now. I don't remember exactly. It's been rough for us lately with all kinds of stuff going on. So my perception of time is off. But it's biased. It's got the thumbnail has Michael Whitman on it. It was from a comment on one of the Whitman videos I did about calling me a video game historian or something. It's one of the more recent videos. It's not too long ago. Oh, thank you. Happy holidays. Hanukkah is almost over. I'm not Jewish. My wife has Jewish ancestry, but we're not practicing. Hanukkah is almost over. Happy Hanukkah to anybody out there. Love the traditions with the food because I'm a big foodie. But yeah, that's my favorite thing about the holiday seasons is the food. That goes for anything. So thank you, Robin. Much appreciated. And thank you, Matt. That is greatly appreciated. Very, very helpful. Yeah, I mean, that's part of it too. Yeah, well, the amount of money that's going into it, some of it obviously is not good. I don't know. Some of it just because it's paywall, right? You got to pay to use it, and some of it I've heard is good, and some of it not so much. And like there's video editing and parceling through that. So that's something that's good. I don't have that because it's pricey. It's way too much money to do. But some of it's good, some of it's bad. And again, I don't know. I don't want to say what's coming because I don't know. But as of now, what I see, not a fan. Even the good, quote unquote, is not looking good. But yeah. Oh, I didn't know that, Phil. I didn't know he used to use a robot voice. That could explain the explosion of followers he has. Yeah, really cool. Oh, thank you, Robin. That's appreciated. Yeah, it's been tough the last little bit, but yeah, we have an AMA coming up this week, so I'll probably cut this now. But again, thanks for watching. Those of you who watch live, afterwards you probably won't see this, but I'm going to cut this down probably before the ramblings and some of the ideas. But yeah, I think this is an important topic. It's something we should all keep our ears to the ground on, keep on the lookout. Something again to kind of add to your history tool belts of how we think about things. And because I talk about this all the time, right? How to analyze sources, why you're reading the secondary book you are, how that book was made and who made it. And, that's great and everything. So this is, I think, another thing we just have to keep in mind moving forward and what it can and cannot mean for us as people who enjoy history and are reading history and consuming it. It's something that's important, and these are important topics to keep in mind. And I'm glad to get so many different perspectives, which is one other great thing. One of the best things about YouTube is we can talk about this in real time with each other like this and get opinions and different experiences. And another thing, AI won't give us. Probably stop moving. The camera's going crazy. Anyway, yeah. Oh, Andreas, awesome. I will be out of there by then, but Normandy's fantastic. Great place to go. But yeah, so if you guys like it, I can talk about this more. If you see anything, send it to me. I did some digging very briefly, about 2 hours of research or so before this. Had an appointment this morning to run around and do stuff, so I didn't get into it as much as I could. But if you see stuff, and this is mostly for people watching live, if you see stuff about history and AI and how it's being applied and what may be coming up on the horizon, that would be great to hear about, because I good, bad, and good, bad, the ugly, whatever you find. Yeah, so that's good. So we'll be back Thursday. Today's Tuesday. Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern time, North American time. Unfortunately, I had to schedule it that way for personal reasons, and I have to work during the day. So this is why I'm doing this one now, because the timing worked. So yeah. yeah, there's a lot going on. So if you have questions, save them from then. We can even talk about some more AI stuff if you guys want to continue some of that, or you've read stuff in the coming days, go for it. But yeah, so it's going to be like the wrap up AMA, but also a chance just to hang out before the end of 2023 because I take off for family visits a couple days after that. So it's a good chance for us to all hang out last time. Yeah, that would be that'll be cool. But yeah, sorry, I'll read some of these comments, but I will keep them hopefully going for next time because I want to hear about some of this stuff, the ideas you have anyway, because I'm going to cut this part after. But thanks all for watching live, and thank you so much for the super chats. Those were really helpful for me because I still have to book my car because I need a car because I can't use public transit. In Normandy, it's not going to work for the sites I need to go to. So that is very helpful, extremely helpful for that. So thank you so much for that, and it'll just make the project better. So with that, I'll see you guys Thursday at some point. So thanks again for everyone sharing your opinions and thoughts, and get you on the next one. Bye, everybody.